Everybody, welcome to CGTN's social media platforms. I'm Silkina Alwalia. I'm CGTN's Indonesia correspondent. Today we are in Bali, Indonesia. I'm here for the entire week to cover the IMF and World Bank meetings. And today we have a very exciting topic that I'm very passionate about and we're going to be talking about, and we're going to be joined by a guest. And the topic is funding the female economy. So let's welcome our guest, Sarah Chen, who is the co-founder and the managing partner of the $1 Billion Fund for Women, which is what we're going to be talking about today. You just launched this campaign that you call the $1 Billion Fund for Women. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the $1 Billion Fund is and why it was created in the first place?
Sure, absolutely. I'm glad to be here today. It's certainly an exciting day and a momentous day for us all. We've been working on the topic of women in leadership, and importantly also speaking about the gender gap, but beyond that we wanted to also speak a little bit more about the gender investment gap. Whilst as you've been covering the World Bank and the IMF with all the ideas surrounding how we get to gender equality, what we believe is truly crucial in getting to that next stage is also backing the women who are the innovators, the women who are driving new businesses which will change our economy, and we need to be investing in them. Unfortunately, the amount of money that is going into women founders as of today is only 2%. So only 2% of the 85 billion, this is in the US, that is going to women founders. We're not seeing the returns that we should be seeing, with that 98% going to other teams that could be sort of given into female founders first and foremost. So I think most importantly, we wanted to address this issue of how do we ensure that women are continuously being invested in, and how can we play a part in actually plugging this investment gap, which starts from the venture funds. So not necessarily just from institutional funds, but also speaking to venture funds who are venture managers in Asia, in MENA, in America. So globally, that's where our reach is. And the idea is that we will be mobilizing $1 billion throughout the next decade to female entrepreneurs to make sure that, we're only 1.9 billion today. How can we up it by $1 billion more and more and more and more?
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that you started this campaign because we talk a lot about gender pay gap, but I had no idea about gender investment gap.
Absolutely.
Okay, so when we talk about fund managers, what are they usually looking for? What are they looking to invest in? Are there certain industries that you see fund managers investing in when it comes to women-led businesses, or it varies?
So I want to put this point across that women are innovating in every sector. And I don't believe it is a pipeline problem. I believe it is an access to capital problem. And that's what we're sort of targeting. We're honing into making sure that women who are leading these powerful startups are being met where they are. The money is getting to where they are, because that's the way it should be. And I think in terms of what sort of investments go into women-led businesses, this varies from AI. The funds that have participated with us are really investing into multiple areas, from AI, blockchain, agriculture, different sorts of financial technology and things like that as well. It's really a wide array, and what it is, it's really about the economic opportunity. I think you talked to me earlier about what's the difference between some of the target markets between what men teams look at, all men teams look at, and what all women teams look at. What I would say is that women definitely have an interesting perspective from a consumer perspective. We are one of the largest consumers in terms of market share from consumer products, from healthcare. So it's really about understanding the market of a women investor investing in women-led companies. This is definitely going to be for all investors.
Yeah. And from what you have seen personally, and also through this campaign, what do you think are some of the challenges that women-led businesses go through currently right now?
Sure. So one of the challenges, as I mentioned, is access to capital, right? So women are not as necessarily networked, and that's one of the issues that we're facing because we're sort of going through the old boys club once again. And let's not sugarcoat it, venture is a club and you need to be in the know of who has the money, who's willing to write you the check, and it's not enough to know the person. It's necessary to have that trust of the person to write that check to invest in you. Because remember, early stage companies, at the end of the day, what are investors backing? They're backing the team. They're backing the caliber of the team and not necessarily an unproven product with an unproven market strategy. And that's what I think, we need to think about.
Yeah. And can you outline how this $1 billion fund for women can help to ease those challenges a little bit for women entrepreneurs?
Right. So one of the issues I highlighted was access to capital. There are many different issues beyond that, which is something I love to share about a little bit more. But let's focus on this one point about how this access to capital issue will be linked to the $1 billion fund for women. So what we're trying to do is really mobilize $1 billion for these female founders. So unheard of companies that may not have the access that we have through the $1 billion fund, which is a consortium of global venture funds. And these are funds that are not less than 100 million only. They're also more than 100 million. I think, you saw the signing earlier today. Gobi Partners, that's one of the biggest Chinese funds in Asia, is committing to $50 million committed to female founders. And that is a start. Having had this conversation about investing in women with institutional funders on our side, we then bring a different leverage altogether and making sure that that one entrepreneur has the exposure to the institutional funds, sovereign wealth funds, we're talking pension funds, people who have the money but may not necessarily have the grassroots reach that we would have through the network of funds we're part of.
And when we were doing our interview earlier, I think it's really interesting how you were highlighting about the Grab co-founders and Alibaba co-founders as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about
financial.
That? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. Sorry, we just had to move a little bit.
Yeah. It's okay. So should we go back? Oh no, I think we can move that side. Can we move that side? Okay. Sorry,
we are literally moving around this hotel.
We are at the IMF World Bank meetings, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of high-level people here, and some areas are just off limits. So, okay, we're just gonna.
The question was about.
Yeah, you can talk to us about the co-founders, the women co-founders.
Yes. So I think one of the issues that we're faced with in making sure that women get invested in is making sure that they have the exposure, that the success stories are being highlighted. I mean, as of today, you've seen the presentation that was done earlier by Shelly and Anusha, my co-founders. The data is there. When you have just one person that's a female founder within the founding team, to break that all-man founding team circle, 63% of returns are increased. Yeah. So there is real business sense to what is being done here. And with Ant Financial, I think what I highlighted was that she raised $14 billion in a Series C. And you didn't even hear about it, right? But we hear all about Jack Ma, the greatness of Jack Ma. And I would like to see more of what the great work they do, not in a supportive role, but importantly, in driving the innovation, in driving the change within the business itself. Because at the end of the day, we can't always be just sitting on the sidelines. What the $1 billion fund for women intends to do is also highlight all these stories where our venture funds have invested their own money, so they have a stake in the game, and seen the returns.
Yeah. Okay, so when we go back to the investment gap, why do you think there is an investment gap between men and women to begin with, from your experience?
So I think one of the things is definitely what I talked about, the all boys club. You will get that check signed through people who believe in you. And how do you get to that stage? You need to be networked enough, first and foremost. Second of all, I think there needs to be a change in the way that legacy funds invest. So if we think about, so one of the key things that we're aiming to do with the $1 billion Fund for Women is have these higher level conversations with institutional funds who may be more used to investing in legacy investment structures, where they're looking for a way to deploy a larger set of capital. Remember, these are people who have more than $1 billion assets under management, and they can't be micromanaging, small check sizes into every female-founded company. So what they do is they invest into fund managers that they know, that have a track record, and therefore you see the cycle, because then what happens is they don't invest into funds that invest in diversity and in different sorts of models where the female founders are.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to break in terms of the cycle as well, to say that, you know what, first time funds, and there's actually data on this, I think between 2010 to 2014, Prekin produced a data point which says that first time funds actually outperform legacy funds.
Yeah.
And these are funds that are investing in new ways beyond the sort of public securities and things like that. It's really about how do we look at new technology, the new development in our generation, and what the markets need, and how do we invest in them.
Yeah.
And that's where the female founders are.
Yeah. And to talk a little bit about yourself, you're Malaysian, but you
Yes.
work in the US now.
Yes.
But you kind of focus more on the Asian funds. So do you see a difference with fund managers that are looking to invest in, for example, Asian-based companies versus Western-based companies?
So I think the investment model is always going to be the same. Number one, we invest in things that make money, that deliver returns. It is about performance at the end of the day. But what's interesting about Asia is that, you know, compared to the US, we are an emerging growth economy. High percentage of growth with increased urbanization, increased digitization, mobile penetration, and things like that, which opens up an array of opportunities. And just think about, I'll give you an example of rocket internet. So the Samuel brothers, who are German, looked at models in the US that have worked years ago, because US is just a little bit more advanced in terms of their market and sort of market adoption of certain technologies. What they did was they went to the US, looked at business models that worked, and brought it to Asia. And that's where you have Lazada.
Yeah.
You have, there's Fashion Valley, the equivalent, what's it called? Zalora.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what they did was they copied business models that have worked, and it literally boomed.
Yeah.
Because our purchasing power has increased significantly. Our adoption in terms of moving on to digital sort of mobile apps and things like that has changed significantly. And that opens up a lot more opportunities, which I think venture managers of funds are honing into, especially in Asia. And you are seeing that, ride-hailing opportunities, right? So
Which
we
is
are
huge.
Absolutely, because we're disrupting the market. You know, in Indonesia, macet, right? So what opportunity is there
right
through
now.
that? Right, exactly. So it's different in the sense that I think it's specific to the market and the growth, but the criteria of what sort of businesses they invest in is still ultimately going to be the same. Do you have a good team? Do you have your market strategy, a market thesis, the total addressable market that will be adopting what you're putting out in there? So people are actually wanting what you put into the market, and sort of also ensuring that it is something that's not just another Airbnb for this or Uber for this, which I'm sure you've heard many times before.
Yeah.
So nothing completely novel. I think venture managers are also looking for new ideas and new innovation that will change the game for how Asian markets are structured, which I think is completely exciting.
Yeah. So I was talking to Shelley, who's also the co-founder of the $1 billion Fund for Women, and she was saying how she believes in diversity, and that means that you have fund managers that are not only investing in women-led businesses, but you're open to male based businesses as well. So how important do you think it is to promote diversity?
So at the end of the day, I think one message that I want to make clear is we are not here to sort of push aside another gender and say that the female gender is all and mighty and holy, because we know that's not true. But, besides that, I think at the end of the day, what we're talking about is we are in desperate need of leveling the playing field. In 2018, how is it possible in the US, which is an advanced market, how is it that only 2% of venture money goes to female-founded companies? This can't be the case, is it? I disagree, and there's actually data to back this, that women are not innovating, women are not doing the right thing. The truth is, women are building businesses at twice the rates that men are, but it's just that
they're not getting access
to the right points. And I think ultimately what we want to make sure is also that it is inclusivity of opinion. I've come from a background where I work with all male teams, and I'm the only woman, male-dominated fields, and I certainly see the difference when even someone from a different background comes into the fold and questions something that you and I think is a norm, right? So if we're so used to doing something one way, we won't see the problem the way another person who has a different background would. And of course, the fact that gender comes into play is because we provide a different view and a different perspective to some of the interesting markets that may apply primarily to women as a market.
Yeah. Okay, Sarah, where can we find the $1 billion fund for women on social media if anybody is interested to check them out? Because this is your launch. Today was the official launch, and I foresee very exciting times ahead. So you can tell our audience, where do we find you?
All right, so you can find us on all social media handles at TBDF, so the $1 billion fund. Women, so TBDF Women, at TBDF Women. So, and our website is www.thebillionfund.org. And if you have any questions, email us. I'll be checking them, hello@thebillionfund.org. And I really look forward to hearing your thoughts on how we can level this up. This is only the beginning of launching this campaign to drive the awareness and really mobilize $1 billion towards women. And we are so close today at our launch. Imagine what we can do in leveling the conversation with institutional investors, people who are in sovereign wealth funds, in pension funds, and really bringing this conversation as a core of every agenda in growing the economy and as a national, international agenda.
Thank you so much, Shara. We feel your passion, and we felt the passion at the launch as well. And it's a positive step towards diversity. So thank you so much. I'm still going to be here throughout the week to cover the IMF and World Bank meetings. There are a lot of topics that are being discussed, and this is just one of the most important topics that I think should be heard and should be covered.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you for watching. If you have any questions or suggestions, you can leave them in the comments below. Bye.
Bye.